Hello. You may remember we had a fantastic webinar on Wednesday. What you may not remember is that I forgot to record it. So now is the webinar that you experienced on Wednesday, and that I'm going to run through those slides now. So I hope you've got a pen and paper and you can take some notes, or if not, I'll pause for about 10 seconds while you get a pen and paper and you take some notes. I've got some great feedback from Wednesday. Thank you very much for that. And I really hope that this re-recorded session is going to kind of hit the spot for you a little bit as I move forward. So anyway, so I'm going to share the screen just now. You should by now see the main deck. How do you still sell during this mad COVID-19 market and beyond? Because this will pass. We will get through COVID-19. There will be a new normal, of course, a few months out, and hopefully ad infinitum from there, but we don't quite know what that looks like. And so we're going to have one eye on the right here, right now, what can we do? But half an eye on, well, how do we kind of do this in a sustainable fashion such that we don't have to change too much yet again when we get to that new normal sort of state. Okay, so moving forward. So welcome all. Tiny bit about me, but thank you for showing up for this recording. We've got some, we have some excellent people on the line, 58 excellent people, in fact. I've been in corporate sales for 30 years, working for some really big brands like Hewlett-Packard, EDS, the technology outsourcer, BT, most people have heard of BT, worked all over the place. And I've worked for a whole host of SMEs and micro businesses. Micro businesses are less than 9 people. So it's not just a big corporate mentality that I have. I know what it takes to work with very small businesses and similarly small budgets and how to get things done on a shoestring as well. So I hope you're going to take that in good spirits. I've closed some pretty big deals, from $100 monthly standing order type service for consumers, right up to a $1.3 billion technology outsourcing deal. And they all have selling as the same principles, no matter how small or how large the deal. The principles of selling are largely the same. Sometimes it can be more complicated with bigger deals, but frankly, the most complicated thing I've had to sell wasn't the cheapest, but it certainly wasn't the most expensive, but it was the most complex sale. So anyway, that's all I've got to say on that. I've closed a total of about $1.8 billion in deals so far. They've been a combination of people I've worked for, employers, but also clients where I've helped them work on specific deals as well. Don't get frightened by the number, just trying to give you an indication that's the sort of flavor of stuff that I've worked on. The kind of clients that I work with now tend to be perhaps startups, people with a thought in their mind, what shall I do, how am I going to go about it, and I work with them, but also newbies. What I mean by newbies is people that are new to the world of sales or thinking about getting into sales and want to know what all the fuss is about. And I work with seasoned sales professionals as well, where perhaps they are, they know their way around the sales methodology, but they're focused on one particularly large deal or one particularly complex deal, and I can kind of help them through that process. And of course, SME business owners as well, where sales is just one of many things that you kind of have to do. And the reason I'm so interested in SMEs in particular and owner managers is because of UK's position in the G7, the most advanced economies in the world, and our productivity as a nation is second from bottom. Only Japan is worse. And we've got people like the USA and France, Germany, even Italy is above us when it comes to productivity. And I think one of the reasons for that is that they respect the profession of sales, and they pay more attention and they invest more in the profession of sales than the United Kingdom typically does. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rule, but for instance, when I worked in New York a few years ago, I could go to a networking event and I could be perhaps with a lawyer or with an accountant, and I could introduce myself as being in sales, and they would typically regard me in the same kind of bracket status, if you like. I don't particularly like that word, but they would regard me as being in the same level of profession as themselves. And if you translate that to this country for some reason just does not have the same relationship, perhaps trust level of someone in sales as perhaps we should do. So I hope I'm promoting a profession of selling, persuasive selling with integrity as well. So that's what I'm all about. And then along comes a virus, changes the world for everyone, probably permanently, and we will get back to some sort of normality, but heaven only knows what that might look like. Right, so moving on, we have got, there's no getting away from this, and I don't wish to be a doomsayer, but also let's not call this out for anything other than what it is. There's going to be a calamitous impact on the UK economy, on the world economy, and depending on who you talk to, which articles you read, there will be about 35% knocked off of this quarter of GDP, and that's absolutely material. Some firms will go under, but some firms will also just rethink about what it is they do and adapt. A very Darwin approach to life, but that's actually what we need to do. Okay, so I'm not going to go through who's in the audience, because obviously that's been and gone now. However, everyone that's in the audience and everyone that's watching this and all the people around you are going to be aware of COVID-19. You have to be hiding in a cave with no communications not to know that was going on. And we will be responding to that somehow. And there's a concept called the change curve, the grief curve in this particular instance. And you might look at this chart right now, and I'd like you to take just a quick look and understand where you might be. You will be somewhere on that chart. You will either be straight away, you'll have accepted that we're in a whole new world, a whole new paradigm, and you're going to get on with it, and that's fine, and that's healthy. But everyone is going to be somewhere, and that's somewhere on there, whether you're in shock and denial. Most people will be over that. But the important thing is that everyone responds to this crisis. Let's not call it anything other than what it is. It's a crisis. And we're going to respond in some sort of way. So just understand where you're at, and therefore that should dictate how you move forward. And if you're stuck in any of those, then I would advise you, we're talking about mental health and well-being, of which I'm not a professional. I would advise you to seek some help if you just can't get past any of this stuff. So just think about that. Anyway, so you'll be on there. Perhaps you recognize where you are. It is a grief curve. Identify where you are. Are you going to hunker down? Are you just going to, if this is a choice for you, are just going to say, well, you know what? I'm going to concentrate on my family just now. I'm not going to worry about the business. That's not an option for most of us, but if you are, fantastic. Most of us are going to have to think about what happens to our business. What are we going to do about working our way through the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is, just to work our way through this, trade out of this cycle and get back into some degree of normalcy. My assumption is most of us are going to try and trade out of this in a sort of healthy and sustainable way. But the root call to action will be get online fast. And that's what you need to do. And hopefully this will just jog a few memories for what you need to be doing. Okay, so I reckon the average person in the UK right now looks like this person. We're all kind of housebound and locked down to some degree, and this is probably the mood of the nation and will be for the next few days or so. So now back to seriousness. A guy called Peter Drucker. The father of management thinking and an academic by profession said this: nothing happens until somebody sells something. Nothing. And that's true. That's what leads to productivity, what leads to economic activity. The reason you're looking at this perhaps on your smartphone is because somebody made that smartphone, yes, of course, but somebody sold it, you bought it. Everyone sells something. You buy everything. So sales is at the heart of any economic dynamic or condition. That's the point I'm trying to get across. And if you work for a small company, or even indeed if it's just for yourself, if you don't think you're in sales, then who else in your organization is going to do the selling for you? So just think about that. It's really, really important. Okay, what's next? So we can think about this in one of several ways. This, for me, is a turnaround, and I do turnarounds, company turnarounds or team turnarounds. And generally what happens is it's a three-phased approach. It's protect what you've got at all costs. It's survive throughout that process, and then thrive. And then through that process, you're building for the future to have a more sustainable asset, or which is in this case is your company. And in the protect phase, a 1 to 3 month view, where you've got to protect your core product or service offerings. That's what you do for a living. It's your core. And you have to think about what impact does the current government guideline have where you are, because although I'm in the UK and many of us were on Wednesdays, we have people from the west coast of the United States and also from sunny Queensland in Australia. Bernard, if you're watching this, great to see you on the line. So whatever the legislation is from your part of the world, and by the time you're watching this, it may well have changed anyway. So just bear that in mind. You're going to have some contracts that are existing, they're contracted revenues. You need to move heaven and earth to protect those, make sure that client is comfortable with what you're delivering, and that your revenue or income isn't going to miss a beat because of the current disaster. And if it is because that client might be going under, you need to identify that sooner rather than later. Okay, next. So what's at risk in the portfolio, in the revenue portfolio, and what mitigations are you going to take to maximize that revenue? If you're into multi-year contracts or multi-period contracts, perhaps 3, 6, 12 months, mobile phone market is built on contracts, as are many other businesses, then ensure that any rollovers that you've got coming up in the next 1 to 3 months, similar to your protected revenue, make sure they happen seamlessly. Again, be in touch with that client. Make sure that you're asking about their welfare, of course, because we might talk about business to business or business to consumer, but actually this is people to people. That is particularly important at this point in time. And ensure that those contract rollovers, those renewals happen. Excuse me. The next, what can you continue to deliver existing revenue? Identify that. And if there might be stuff that you can't deliver, if you're doing sales training in a corporate environment, in a workshop, person to person, you just can't do that. It's against the law. So you're going to have to think about how you deliver that in a different way. And a Zoom meeting or a Zoom session, as I'm going to be doing with Aston Business School later in a couple of weeks, actually, I've got to do that in a different way. We're having to adapt to a new world. And also, you may still be able to win some business. So whilst you might be in a sector, if you're 100% exposed to the whole hospitality sector, you might want to think about, gee, I'm not going to be getting too much business from them. I ought to look somewhere else. And again, I can help you, or others can help you. Just kind of identify where that might be based on what your company is good at doing, what it does for a living, how it generates revenue, and the benefits that you can deliver your clients. They might just lift and shift into another sector space. Okay, so The next phase of turnaround is going to be the survive phase, and that's the 1 to 6 month view, where you're protecting your core products, your core service offerings, of course. That's really important. So you're going to survive through realism, given that all companies have a finite set of resources available to them, be it people, be it assets, be it cash. But we're operating in a world of global anxiety. So there's a heightened state of anxiety, if you like, and where decisions are going to have high impact on us and as a society as a whole, the like of which we haven't seen since the last World War. So ensure, again, back to basics, ensure any rollovers or renewals happen seamlessly without missing a beat. Talk to your clients. Make sure everyone's comfortable and that rolls through. And that may mean having to have a conversation that's a little bit uncomfortable. There might be a renegotiation. All I would say is enter into it in good faith, stand your ground where you can, and some of that is going to be understanding who's in the pound seat or the Aussie dollar seat at the moment, who's in control. We'll cover more of that in the negotiation phase of these free series of webinars, which this is the first of 9. Negotiation, I think, is going to be around 6 or 7, something like that. You just need to get good at that stuff. And you've got to have that conversation. You've got to have it. If you don't have a conversation with your client, the answer is almost certainly no right now. Okay, so what can you continue to deliver over the next 1 to 6 months or win, given the current government guidelines wherever in the world you are? Where are the gaps in your offer and what are the mitigations? So is there stuff that's needed more online? Perhaps you need more internet bandwidth as a result of delivering your service online rather than face-to-face. Maybe that's one of the situations that you've got to start thinking about. It's about adapting to the new paradigm. Okay, so pipeline for me is, and for anyone, is business that you are talking to clients or prospective clients about, which hasn't come to contract yet. Maybe there hasn't been a decision made, but you feel pretty good that you're going to win it. I won't get into the if, whats, and wherefores at the minute, but it's in your pipeline, and it's 1 to 6 months out. So in that pipeline, you're going to have what's called risk-weighted pipeline. So nothing is 100% guaranteed unless it's in a contract. And even then, sometimes I wonder. But anyway, there's going to be some stuff which you're going to win anyway. We'll call it low-hanging fruit. You're going to win it anyway because maybe you've got the best service, the best product offer. Maybe you've got the best relationship with the client. Maybe you've got the cheapest price. Not good to win on the cheapest price necessarily, but it works for some models. Amazon do it time and time again. So stuff that you're going to win anyway, excuse me, and requires a little bit of resource from you, but not an awful lot. It's going to come in. Cherish those opportunities. Make sure you win them. That's my advice. There are going to be other opportunities which you're further away from in terms of you can't see how to win it just yet, but you could win with an acceptable degree of investment, which is generally going to be time and money. And there are going to be other deals, other opportunities in your pipeline, which you could win at a stretch. And when you win at a stretch, it's not always a bit like basketball, not always good to do things at a stretch because you can fall off balance. And in business terms, that means betting the farm. And you don't want to go after a particular opportunity like Toshiba did with Hinkley B power station, and very much almost bankrupted themselves. They had to withdraw from that. Now, I know that deal is gazillions of dollars. It's taken almost a decade to do. But they invested a lot of resources into that and had to walk away. So goodness knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars they lost on that deal. But there are going to be smaller examples in your world that you have to think about, and you have to get real. For the next 1 to 6 months, Everyone's got to get real. Don't bet the farm. Go for safety. I take a cautious approach anyway. Keep the wheels turning. Keep your people employed. Keep food on the table. So for any deals that are in the pipeline that you could win at a stretch, I would question the wisdom of going after that stuff at all. Okay, and you would have to think once, twice, three times. And if you don't talk to me, talk to someone else who can kind of talk you through what the risks might be, what the losses might be. You could win that, but at what cost, etc., etc. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Into the thrive. So again, back to the point. This will be over at some point. We don't know when it is, but it is going to be over, and there will be a new normal, which will look a bit like we did a month and so before, but it won't look exactly like this. Will be more disparate. More people will be working from home. People will think strongly about their work-life balance. It'll be a period of discovery for an awful lot of people. Corporations are going to find out that actually people can work from home and the wheels don't fall off. So that's a really interesting and important kind of discovery that we're going through. And you're going to thrive, the thrive phase, which is 6 months plus outwards, by adapting competently to the new normal. Again, back to basics. Ensure any rollovers that are going to happen, they will be the lifeblood of your business. Make sure they happen seamlessly, they don't miss a beat, and you keep your revenue streams on track. And what can you do to deliver or win, again, given current government guidelines, wherever in the world you are, continue to deliver. And what can you, where are the gaps? What's at risk in the way that you deliver when you map onto your value proposition, how you deliver stuff? What's at risk given the current guidelines? What can you no longer do or have to do in a different way because of social distancing, for instance, in order to maximize revenue or in order to minimize loss of revenue? Those are important things to think about. I'm going to talk about adjacency. And you look up in the dictionary, if something's adjacent to something else, that means it's sat right next to, it's adjacent to. So that's going to be a really important concept for every single business right now, the subject of adjacency. And this is what it looks like. One second. Excuse me. Okay, so adjacency. You can see I've done this in a series of contracts, and you might think about this as contract one, which is a core contract. Is your core, is what you do for a living. It's your bread and butter, as we would say in the United Kingdom. It's just what you do in a heartbeat, without even thinking. That's what you do to deliver for clients. That's the service. That's the product, etc. And if you're in the, let's say, virtual administration, which is a really growing part of the business world, you could be a virtual administrator. You might even have a team of virtual administrators. And perhaps for contract two, perhaps they do shall we say, a lower level work function, which is maybe they take incoming calls for business owner managers when they've got their mobile phone switched off, they're out of the office or whatever. Perhaps calls divert to the virtual administrator. They take the calls, they pass on the messages. Perhaps even they've got access to emails and they respond, and that's their bread and butter. Or perhaps going forward, you might think about offering an enhanced level of service. Perhaps you've got some Microsoft Office skills, as a lot of people do these days, most people do, and you might want to offer document production, document preparation type services, or prepare presentations. And that will attract you, I would argue, a higher hourly rate than you might otherwise get just for taking messages. It's got a higher level of skill required in customer interaction to discharge your obligations for services like that. The next level up might be writing proposals, let's say. So C3, contract 3, you might write contracts for some of your customers, where, not contracts, but proposals for your customers. That's an enhanced level of service, again, a higher annual rate. and not a million miles from what you did. You did stuff for customers, you answered messages, you prepared documents. It's not a big stretch to say, okay, well, we're just going to prepare more important documents. So there could be PowerPoint presentations, etc. ad infinitum. And you can build service layers, we would call them. That's something to think about. There's another example. Perhaps you're a website company. You just build websites. You know the language of programming code and all the rest of it, and you can build them all day long. That's a very competitive market to be in. Your margins will be wafer thin. But the only way you can compensate for that is to get the volume coming in. That makes your company a bit of money, but it's a low margin piece of business to be delivering. However, you've got a client base, and assuming you're good at developing websites and creating and building websites, then the adjacency I would talk about is perhaps, well, we're going to offer an enhanced level of service. We're going to offer pay-per-click. So we're going to do websites, but also we're going to be into pay-per-click advertising, Google, Facebook campaigns, whatever it happens to be. And I work with one or two firms in this area as well. So if you want recommendations, come to me by all means. That would be an enhanced, that would be perhaps contract 2 on that diagram. Well, once you've got that and you're delivering that and you're building client relationships, perhaps even building new logo client relationships, it wins you more customers because you can do more for them. You come onto the contract 3, which could be search engine optimization, which is where you're going to build websites in a particular kind of way so that they're optimized, as the word would say, for search engine optimization, so that Google finds, indexes, ranks your website in a particular way, which means when someone Googles Sales Marvel, or when someone Googles British Petroleum or BP, it ends up on page 1 rather than page 99. So SEO is a really good thing to do if it's done well. And by the way, everyone thinks they're good at SEO. They're SEO savvy. Very few people do that very well. Frank and Stephen at Turtle Media are brilliant. They're doing some work for me at the minute. I can't recommend them highly enough. And I would encourage you to think about that. Okay, number 4. So if you're doing all those things for one client, you've built their website, pay-per-click, you're building them some business, you've optimized them for search engines, Google in particular. You know a lot about that company, and it's not a huge leap to then, given you know all this about that company, what they do for a living, you can encroach is the right word for me, on brand. You know about that company's brand, and that pays a much higher hourly or daily rate, probably on a monthly retainer rate by the time you get to that stage. But all of a sudden, from just building websites, you've gone from there to you own that company's online brand, and you can live it, eat it, breathe it, and you can really deliver fantastic results. And I know that there's a particular firm of solicitors in the West Midlands that Turtle Media work for, and they've done exactly that kind of work. So that's just another example of where that can work. I'm not going to give any time to this slide, other than you might want to pause the video in just a moment and look at this sheet and just think about the stuff that we've talked about, adjacency, adapting to the new normal, and look at what are my top 3 clients measured by profitability? Where do I make most of my money? That's generally the best relationships that you've got. What is it? What are the core services they currently buy from you? What else have we got that we could sell them, or that we could develop and go back and sell them? If you've got an existing relationship there, you've got permission to go and have those sorts of new conversations. What would you need to believe for those sales to happen? Well, so-and-so needs to say yes, or someone else mustn't say no. That could be as simple as that. When was the last time you spoke to them? So you must, and I think I've reinforced this enough times, talk to your clients. particularly in times of extraordinary change that we're currently going through. Okay, so in summary about the impact on business of COVID-19, massive disruption. I probably should have capitalized that, but it's massive. There will be breaks or disruption in client relationships. Your bonds will be broken or fragile. As it relates to client stickiness, what I would call client stickiness, how easy you are to oust from a supply chain and get someone in instead. That's called stickiness. So that's going to be at risk. You need to think about that and therefore be talking to your clients. Reassure them that you're doing everything needed to remain sound and a trusted delivery partner for your clients. But also, in times of massive change, is massive opportunity as well. So where are the opportunities where you can perhaps get ahead of that change curve and start delivering in a new and fresh way without breaking the bank, without the wheels falling off? Okay, so that's the disruptive element. Now we're back to, okay, so how can we think about how we do sales as either a standalone, just me type organization, or whether you're a really significant SME or even an enterprise organization, having been through a large amount of change. And you have to break the sales processes down. And there are 8 sort of line items on the left-hand side of this chart, which you should be able to see. And they're in the wrong order. Here's my point, is that you're going to have to think about what your sales messages are for your value proposition, what you do, how you make money, the kinds of customers you want to work with. And I'll fast forward, I won't get you to guess. But anyway, number 1, out of any sales campaign, out of any sales process, has to be on the right-hand side there, value proposition. What is it we do? And that's before you spend any money on marketing at all. What is it we do? What's our message to the market? And once you've created those messages, you can then line them up amongst all your sales channels, your go-to-market strategy. But once you've got that content, it's then reusable for each of those channels to market. We'll talk about that in more detail. Go-to-market will be in a couple of weeks' time on the 29th of April. So just to go through those and put them in the right order. Value proposition is first, and then we've got go-to-market strategy. Okay, so that's our messages. Where are we going to push those messages out to? We're then going to resonate with the market. We hope that's going to generate some interest and some leads, if you like, lead generation. I'm going to talk about lead generation at the end of this webinar. We've got a special deal. If LinkedIn is at all important for you, then encourage you to keep listening. I'll talk to you about that offer a little bit later on. We're going to get some leads in. Not all of them will convert into a sale. That's just life. But the important goal is that we're going to get some leads, which we decide we're going to sell to, or that's not really for us, or whatever it happens to be. But we're going to qualify those opportunities, those deals. It might be if it's a more complex sale that you have going on, there might be a pursuit strategy where you might have to get permission to bid from your manager. You might have to get a pursuit budget, marketing budget, to pursue them in larger, more complex sales processes. You may have to negotiate a deal, no matter how big or how small. We all have to negotiate from time to time. We'll discuss that in a webinar should be number 7. We're going to close the sale as well. You'll notice that there are only 7 steps. So closing the sale is not the last step in the sales process, far from it. There's one other process left, which is maximizing yield. So once you've won that client, so what? Okay, we want to keep delivering, but also you probably want to sell that client some adjacency if we're going to bring out new services or other existing services. So it's fertile sales territory. They're already trusted you once to deliver a service. Hopefully you're delivering on that. That's a big assumption, but it's a reasonable one. But also that client has got their own network. They could also refer you into other potential clients for your business. So they're really worth keeping on side. And depending on which publications you read, I read Harvard Business Review quite regularly, they will tell you that a new customer costs between 5 and 25 times the amount that it costs to service an existing customer. So keeping your existing customers on side, delighted with your service is absolutely job number one. Okay. Next chart. Okay, so here we've got the value creation model. We've got a pyramid. And if you can, I want to take you back to a deal that I won a couple of years ago. There was a lot of competitors for. It was a very large deal. It doesn't really matter about the numbers because assuming you're not selling Fabergé eggs, for instance, which cost a whole lot of money and are only available for a single source, so you can't really negotiate, you're not in the power seat. There's going to almost certainly be competitors that want a contract that you're bidding for. You're going to have to find out, well, how am I going to win that versus all the other guys? So I went through a process. This is how I learned about this stuff. I went through a process that well, most salespeople, first of all, most salespeople should be able to get to explaining or articulating some sort of difference between you and your competitors to the customer. Most of them should be able to get there themselves. They should know enough about their products, their competition, their industry to articulate that. Where you can get yourself into the top level of that value creation model, into the preferred segment of the pyramid, coaching or mentoring can help you get there from someone that's been there before, that knows how to do that stuff. If it's not me, that's fine. But get someone that can help you get there earlier. You'll win more deals, and those deals will stay in bed, and you'll have repeat business. It's a really important process to go through. Okay, next chart. Again, value proposition. I want to talk to you about another experience that I had with Vodafone. Lots of bidders for a particular contract. Large one, don't worry about the numbers. But there are 18 other bidders. So there are 19 of us down in that bottom segment called Me Too. Everyone wanting to know. So the client, Vodafone, said, well, we want to outsource our IT. So it's as basic as, well, all these companies respond to, as it called, an RFP or an RFI at that stage, request for information. And they'll say, okay, you want to buy some IT outsourcing? We sell IT outsourcing. And you become part of the Me Too, part of the table stakes brigade. But so what? You're nowhere near the deal yet. So the next part of the process would be making it through the next phase, understanding the process that your client is going to use to go through that process. And get you nearer to that deal is also pretty important. You're going to have to listen really hard as to what they want to buy and how they want to go about the process. Excuse me. So Vodafone went from 19 down to 6. So they got rid of 13 bidders using their own process, who they knew in the market. Your general reputation is pretty easy to find out online these days. So we got to a differentiated model, but differentiated, there were still 5 other competitors in the mix, all wanting that deal. And how did we get therefore to the point where we were actually preferred? Well, what we did was we sold our capabilities, and the capabilities we can deliver at this scale with this complexity of IT that you, Mr. Customer, have got in your landscape, in your topology around the world. Capability, we can do that. And that doesn't matter if you're an IT outsourcer or whether you're a management consultant or whether you're a virtual administrator. You have capability relative to the business sector that they're in, which isn't just telecoms, it's wireless telecoms, cellular phones. Now, there's a bit more to it than that, but anyway, I'm making a basic distinction. We can offer, again, I'm talking as I was at the time, we can offer relevant case studies. So we'd already done similar work for companies like O2, companies like Nextel in the States, with Vodacom in South Africa. We had experience, and we were going to put the right people on the pursuit team to make sure that we delivered a fantastic service. And if you argue, so what? And this is why value proposition is so important, is that a great value proposition helps differentiate you from your competitors. And value proposition is what we're going to be talking about this time next week, Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 11 a.m. I'm going to be talking about just about value proposition. It's that important. Okay, so moving on to the next chart. Again, the value creation model. One more example, just to get you thinking in this area. One second, excuse me. I did some work for a leading UK university, Lancaster University, in the management school. And the reason I mention about this is not to disrespect LUMS, certainly not, but it's typical of what I see in customer bases around the world, and particular to the UK. So Lancaster University Management School is a high pedigree management school. It's known throughout the world. But, you know, as with all, it's not perfect and what an organisation is, but there's one particular master's programme that they were having a bit of difficulty recruiting to. So they asked me to effective turnaround, and if you remember, protect, survive, thrive, to turn around that particular recruitment and conversion activity. In universities, they don't have salespeople; they have recruitment and conversion. Just remember that. So anyway, we did this project. We over-delivered. They needed 20 on this master's program. We got 23, and in the pretty much the debrief meeting. So it was an 8-week turnaround. In the 7th or 8th week, I overheard a conversation in a meeting, a sort of sidebar conversation between two academics who said, "Oh, by the way, we're #1 for corporate strategy again this year." And I stopped the meeting at that point, which I was chairing, and I said, "Martin, I heard you say we're #1 for corporate strategy. Is that right?" "Yes, that's right. We're #1 for corporate strategy." "Oh, okay." And I presume that's in the northwest of England because Alliance Manchester is just down the road and we're #1 in the northwest. Is that right? And he said, no, it's not. We're #1 in the world. So I said, #1 in the world? What, you mean better than Harvard? Yes, we're better than Harvard. Better than Wharton? Yes, we're better than Wharton. And I said, well, crikey, it would have been really helpful to know that back in the, before we started the project. So I had all the exemplars, all the case studies, everything in the toolkit so that I could go to market in a really optimized way. And so my point here isn't to, perhaps shed LUMS in a bad light. Certainly not. I had a really wonderful experience there. My point is, you in your business have got some jewels which you haven't thought about in ages, but you just do day in, day out without even thinking about. So I encourage you to take a few seconds or even a few minutes after this recording and think about, where is it I've really pulled stuff out of the bag? What are we famous for? What do we just do brilliantly that we don't really brag about? People talk about bragging rights in sales. I would argue #1 in the world for corporate strategy is absolutely a bragging right. And let me tell you, if you were in the United States at Harvard and you're #1 in the world for something, that would be drilled into you day one. So, and sometimes when we're in the UK, or maybe even in Australia, Bernard, um, we sometimes keep our light hidden under a bushel. We shouldn't do that, particularly in this crisis that we're currently facing. We're going to have to dig deep. What is it we're brilliant at? What is it we've turned around? Where have we really helped customers out of the doo-doo and made them look brilliant? So what, out of telling you all of that, is whatever that was, that X was, be more, brag, if you like, within reason. Get more of it. That's what I'm saying. So exercise one. What is it you do? What is it you do day in, day out that you just haven't told people about? Okay, so on benefits, does everyone know what a business benefit is? And I'm going to just invite you to think about that for a second or so. Now, I've worked in technology with IT companies and IT services for most of my working life, and I can tell you now, most of them are not very good at articulating benefits. That's not to say they don't deliver any, but they're not very good at articulating benefits. So here's a benefit. We do laptops. We sell laptops. You want to buy a laptop? We sell laptops. Well, laptops in themselves are an offer. They're not a benefit. The benefit is what you can do with that offer. The benefit is the productivity it brings. I can type a document much quicker than I can fast it, and than I can handwrite it. I can type it much quicker than I can handwrite it. Therefore, the laptop brings me a productivity benefit that I wouldn't get from paper and pen alone. That brings me benefits, that makes me more productive, more efficient for my organization, makes more money out of me. That's a benefit that gets you on the lowest rung of the ladder, Me Too. That gets you on the Me Too part of the ladder. Now, if you can enhance that benefit with, well, the way we deliver IT, Mr. Customer, means it's 30% cheaper and you get more uptime than doing it another way. You're delivering 30% productivity improvement. People love numbers. I love numbers. They're really, you've got to be able to justify it and substantiate it, but it's very measurable. It's smart, in other words, and that's really important. That's an enhanced level of benefit. But here's the best bit: if you can say something like 75% of our clients renew their service agreements with us at the end of the first term, that tells prospective clients who've got a really good loyalty. There's another thing called Net Promoter Scores. Which of your client base would recommend you? Would they advocate? Yes, hire Sales Marvel, for instance, for your sales coaching, or Aviva for your insurance, or whatever it happens to be. That suggests you've got a very loyal client base. You must be doing something right, and that's a really rich benefit. There's some rich data going on in there. That is a benefit. Not we do laptops. That is not a benefit. So think about that for your own business and how you articulate your benefits. So in summary, excuse me, protect, survive, thrive. That's the turnaround strategy to start selling COVID-19, but keep selling when we're out the blocks at the end of the COVID-19 lockdown process. By the way, depending on who you talk to and where you get your research from, and it's important to get it from credible, established houses, then we're going to probably experience some kind of social distancing recommendation well beyond 2020, perhaps even for the next couple of years. So bear that in mind before you start introducing new services. Think about and keep an eye on the news and government legislation for what's happening in that space. Okay, so terrible, but it's also an opportunity. Get your business online now in a sustainable way in continuum and ongoingly. So, and protect your ecosystem. Your ecosystem is you and all the stakeholders you interact with. That's your customers. That's one set of stakeholders. Your supply chain. If you buy in raw materials for your manufacturing company, your supply chain is a really big asset. So protect that ecosystem. Make sure that they're doing okay as well. Your bank, by the way, is also part of your ecosystem, whether you like it or not. Make sure they're earning their keep as well. Make sure they're doing for you what you need them to be doing. Build resilience both in your business and in yourself. Stay healthy and stay safe and well. Okay. Now, in the webinar, I called for some questions, as the slide would sort of dictate, and we got lots of questions. The number one question was from a particular company that was almost exclusively exposed to the hospitality sector, selling Wi-Fi systems for hospitality, and all of a sudden, the hospitality sector has fallen off a cliff, unprecedented. Oh my goodness, what do we do now? Well, the fact is, I said to the business owner, well, what really has changed? Have you all of a sudden become, bad at delivering Wi-Fi services? Well, no, Keith, absolutely not. Brilliant. So you're still brilliant at delivering Wi-Fi. Okay, well, who else needs Wi-Fi delivered in and this is in a part adjacency. So who else is it that needs Wi-Fi delivered in sort of the way you deliver it now? Where can you add value with your marketing skills, with the data and the intelligence wrapper that you build around that Wi-Fi? So who else? And we've identified one or two sectors in the public sector which is still spending money that we're going to jointly go after and look and pursue new business in that sector. So what's my message? All is not lost. You still have all that expertise. You still have amassed all that experience and insight into delivering great Wi-Fi systems and how it can benefit the bottom line, how it can become a marketing tool and a profit center as opposed to a cost center, which it is in many business sectors these days. So that was a really important thought process to go through. But as you're watching this, if that causes you to think something, or if it causes you, to want to ask a question, then by all means, I'll give you my details in a second. By all means, fire me a question on that. So anyway, coming towards the end of this recorded session, I'd like to make you an offer now. Andy Warhol talked about 15 minutes. This is a slightly different 15 minutes, but what I'm saying is, in order to, I want to help. So if there is something you'd like to talk about with me, one-on-one, no one else in the room, in the virtual room, talking about a particular thing that's top of your mind, then I would like to have that conversation with you sooner rather than later. So free 15 minutes, and it's complimentary. There's no obligation, and you can walk away, use that information or not. That's up to you. And you can come to me for further coaching afterwards or not. That's up to you too. And I'll be delighted. And I can say I'm recording this on Friday afternoon. Since Wednesday, 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. when I finished delivering the webinar, I've had 8 people come forward with wanting that 15-minute one-on-one, which is wonderful. Thank you so much. I've done some of them already. Some of them are spilling over into next week. But the important thing is that we get moving really quickly. And if I can help in any way, excuse me, to do that, fantastic. The other offer I have, there's one more actually. The other offer I have is that I'm knocking 50%, reducing my rate 50% from $250 an hour to my standard coaching charge down to £125 an offer. And that's a time-bound offer, and it needs to take place before the end of webinar 9. So we've got quite a window, but I'll make that offer to you. I've done one of those hours already want to see more, there's some really good thoughts that we can have and insight that we can collaborate on. And the other thing, which I'd like to bring to your attention, is a company called InLeads, LEADS, inleads.co.uk. And excuse me, if LinkedIn, which it is for me, if you believe in that as a platform to market yourself, your company, your organization's offers, and how you use it for research to develop leads, InLeads is a fantastic way of doing more at scale, more quickly than you would otherwise have. I don't know about you, but up until fairly recently, I built my network by posting and engaging people, and they connect with me, and I proactively engage with them. But sometimes some people I know will just sit in front of the TV during the evening, and they'll go ding, 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 invite loads of people. Well, okay, that's not very well qualified, and it's time-consuming and disruptive. InLeads have a special program, a secret sauce, an algorithm, if you will, where they will match contacts with you. I encourage you to go with their website. They'll explain it far more than I will here. But there's a promo code. The point is they'll offer you a 2-week free trial. Anyone can get that. There's a promo code up on the screen, SalesMarvel-2020, which will get you 25% off their published rate for the first 3 months of a paid campaign. They will, and they're delivering for me already. I can underwrite their service and attest to it. They've been incredibly helpful to me. And so my offer to you for coming through this webinar, and I look forward to seeing you on more of them every Wednesday, 11 a.m. And you can come to me on LinkedIn. You can connect there. You can find me on my Eventbrite page, Sales Marvel. But I'd love to see you on the next webinar where we're going to talk about value proposition. I really want to see you there. It will be wonderful. Let's see if we can get even more people on that webinar this time. The 11 a.m., 22nd of April, and 7 Wednesdays thereafter. And webinar will be value proposition, and it's to avoid stuff like this happening. If you can see on the screen, keep back from the platform edge. So that was meant in good faith. You can read it one way, it says one thing. You can read it another way, and it says quite another. So the important thing is the right messages to the right people at the right time. Next week, value proposition, we will show you how to get there. So thank you. You may already be connected, in which case, fantastic. Keep posting, keep engaging. Let me know about what you're doing as well. I love reading about that stuff. If you're not connected with me, feel free to do so. I'm an open networker. You can, if you want to message me, you can do so, keith@salesmarvel.co.uk, or you can visit my website, and there's loads of blogs, sales content on there as well. Okay, but thank you very much for taking the time and attention that you have already, and I really look forward to seeing you online next Wednesday, the 22nd at 11 o'clock, or if you want to message me, get those 15 minutes in. I look forward to that too. Thanks so much for your time and attention. Please stay safe and well.